This episode of Into the Torus is brought to you by Sane Hood. At Sane Hood, they make meditation easy, intuitive, and fun through their groundbreaking technology called Flow AI. Flow AI, developed from the ground up, can detect when a person enters flow state and can assign a sane score for each meditation session so that people can track their progress over time to see their improvements. Also, they can earn crypto tokens while they meditate. Check out sanehood.com. It's free to use for the world because meditation is the answer to helping people find peace and purpose. Into the Torus is also brought to you by Children of the Night. Children of the Night is a privately funded nonprofit organization established in 1979 with the specific purpose to provide intervention in the lives of children who are sexually exploited and vulnerable to or involved in prostitution and pornography. Children of the Night is the only place in America where a child can call from a seedy motel or truck stop anywhere in the United States. Reach a skilled caseworker 24/7 who knows how to rescue and relocate a child or young person from a dangerous condition without being arrested by the police. Their 24/7 nationwide toll-free case management services are comprehensive and able to help anyone trapped on the streets of our nation. Please consider making a donation to Children of the Night by visiting their website, www.childrenofthenight.org/donate. This episode of Into the Torus is brought to you by Genetic Protocol. Genetic Protocol offers the most advanced systems-based genetic analysis with circadian and diet protocols for achieving health and peak performance. Genetic Protocol offers personalized DNA testing for your path to optimal health. Their exclusive Genetic Protocol panel identifies 55 SNPs and includes a full report with strategic lifestyle, nutrient, environment, and supplement protocols. Specific risks, if any, will be identified and environmental issues to avoid will be listed. Visit geneticprotocol.com to get started today. So I really appreciate you all coming in and joining me on this conversation today. I hope to shed some light on what's happening. About a month ago, there was just a very horrific attack that took place and has started a very intense escalation of fighting in Palestine, in Israel. But it goes way further back. The beginnings go back thousands of years. So
not thousand years. Let me stop you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not thousands of years. This conflict go back to after the Ottomans lost power, collapsed after World War I.
Oh, okay.
Before that, it was under the Ottomans and under the Muslim captivity.
The land of Palestine?
The Palestine, of the whole region. Right. Jordan, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, all the North Africa, all Africa was under the Ottomans for almost 800 years. When the West, they decided to wipe out the Ottomans Empire and they collapsed in the World War I, 1916, 1917. They collapsed, and then after that, they colonized the area. The superpower at that time was the Great Britain, the France, and the Italians. Okay, these are the major forces were at that time. America was there, but it wasn't superpower. So they divided the cake, what they call it. And then the Zionist movement in the 1890, they got a promise from the Prime Minister of England, which is British, Great Britain at that time, and French, called promise of Bill 4. That's mean to give a land. They promise the prime ministers, those two prime ministers, they give a promise to the Zionists to give him a land in Palestine, a homeland, because they were scattered all over, right? And they flee persecution from the church in the late 1800s, from Europe, from Russia. They even fled to the Ottomans. Can you believe it? The Ottomans, they opened their hearts for them, and they accept them, and it was a hub for them a safe haven in Istanbul, in Egypt, in Syria. So they lived there with their full rights. They work, never got discriminated against. They have their own community, or food, or culture, or names. Nothing changed. Okay, they kept practicing their religion, and was protected by the Ottomans. But what happened is, after the collapse of the Ottomans, they infiltrated on the Ottomans, the Zionists, you know, and they destroyed the Ottomans, and now they break that cake, and now Palestine fall under the colonizing of the Brits, and Jordan, Iraq, and Egypt, okay, and India before. But I'm talking, let's focus about Palestine. So now the Brits there in the 1920s, they're there, they're colonizing, they're killing, you know, and they're taking the land, and taking the occupation, you know, basically the Palestinians resisted. But at that time, they didn't have enough support, didn't have enough weapon to defend themselves. So whatever they can grab from Syria, from Egypt, some what they call volunteer fighters, they go and attack the British camps. But at that time, since the Zionists, they won their land, and they know now their body there, so they said, hey, we wanted to get ready to go there. So they made a deal with them. They start coming in the Mediterranean with a lot of ships, and they start training them, okay, in their camps, how to shoot. They will give them weapons, and making militias, like Kach and Kahana and I forgot, like 3-4 names. I forgot. One of them is Kach and one Hagana. These are malicious killers, like mercenary.
On the British side.
Yeah, and the Jewish. They're Jewish. The Zionists.
So, was there an alliance between the Zionists and the British?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm coming to that. If I have a time.
Yeah, we have, as much time as we need. But
yeah, so you have to bring this history so that people can understand what happened. Mm-hmm. So now Palestine. The Palestinians fighting the British, but at the same time, the British allowing the Zionists, and they train them, they give them weapons, and they start even killing the Palestinians while the Brits were there. So 1930, 1940, then they made a deal. In 1947, the British decided to withdraw. Okay?
And this is
1947.
after World War II? Or
Yeah, yes, after.
After World War
Yes. So they decided to withdraw. Okay? Now, after they withdraw, the Jewish already there, the militias, they have the ammo, they're trained. So as soon as they left in 1948, they declared their state. But they declared on the blood of the Palestinians. It wasn't peacefully. They went all the coastal area, 480 villages and towns documented in our history, wiped out. Meaning they come to the towns, kill whomever they can kill, the rest they run inland. 480 towns and cities documented, okay? Up to Gaza. Gaza was under the Egypt control in 1948, okay? So then those guys, a lot of them, they went to Gaza as refugees, okay? And now, in 1967, you know, Zionists, they want to expand. It was a war in 1948, of course, seven armies. In 1967, Israel decided to expand, the Zionists, okay? They took Gaza from Egypt. They took the West Bank, you know, and they took Jerusalem. And they took, I think, Golan Heights. And as a result, our family, my dad decided to go to Jordan. 500,000 Palestinians moved to Jordan and to Syria and to Egypt. And Lebanon.
So you were born in
I was born in Jordan.
In
1967, by the way, in August.
In 67.
So my mom, she was pregnant when I moved, I guess.
And for those that don't know you, tell us your name.
My name is Amjad Alfar.
Amjad Alfar.
Yes, I live in Ventura. Long time living here since 2004.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you came, was Ventura your
I
first?
I was living in Santa Barbara before
Okay.
for like 5 years. Before that, I was in San Jose. But I came here in 1990 to the U.S. Yeah, 1990.
Jim,
What would you like to know?
Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
I'm a clinical psychologist. I graduated in 1978. I practiced here in Ventura County since that time. I've lived in Ventura since 1990. And I have 2 children, 2 girls, 27, 26, out of the house.
Quiet house? No.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet now, comparatively to what it used to be.
You are an advocate or part of Jewish Voices for Peace, is that correct?
I'm a member of Jewish Voices for Peace. I'm not Jewish, but I am a member of that group. I can't speak for that group, but I can speak for what the principles are that they stand for. And I'm enraged at what I see is going on in our name, because it's so inconsistent with the principles upon which our country is founded. And the death that is occurring and the mistreatment of other people is unacceptable to me. I feel I have to do something.
What compelled you to join that organization?
I felt very frustrated when I saw what was going on in Gaza after the Hamas invasion. I thought it was an extreme overreaction on the part of the Israeli state, and I felt impotent. I couldn't have any impact on what was going on. I wrote letters to the administration, I wrote letters to Congress, but I still felt my voice is not being heard. So I looked around, went online, what group can I join? What group is taking a stand? And my views were most consistent with Jewish Voice for Peace. So I joined them and communicated with those members, and now I'm identifying myself as a member of that group.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today to help kind of show what's happening with both sides. I mean, at the end of the day, it's civilians, it's innocent civilians that are caught in this turmoil. And I'd love to get a little bit back into the history. But Cindy, tell us a little bit about why you're joining us here today.
Oh, Alex, hi.
It's been a minute.
It's good to see you. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you so much. Well, I had a little bit of downtime from some of the other things I was doing, and then this happened with Hamas on October 7th, and then what came out of that in Gaza. I mean, it enraged me. I think it's enraging the world. And it just cannot be. I mean, it's exasperating to think that the United States is supporting Israel in what is really a classic genocide. You know, a wholesale murder of an entire population based on the concept that they're actually going in there to get Hamas. But if you're going in there to get Hamas, then why do you turn off the water for the civilians so that they're going to be dehydrated and die? Why do you cut away the food so they could starve to death? And why do you bomb tons and tons of bombs on the most densely populated part of the entire world? I mean, it's outrageous. So I was extremely upset, and one of the groups that, you know, I had been involved and part of years back when Gaza was under attack was Venturans for Just Palestine. With Amjad and with others, we did some work then that I felt really good about. But we let it subside over time because things were kind of easing off, it looked like. Of course, in the long term, they didn't ease off, they got worse. And then, of course, you know, I lost my husband and withdrew from the public sphere for 5 years. And so anyway, when this happened, all of those old ties, and I just called everybody, and everybody was, yes, let's get together, let's do that. And so that led to what we did today, which was a demonstration in front of the government center, 130 people with just a couple days' notice, practically, you know, and people on all the corners there, and some media out, which was very, I was very much appreciative, and different groups came out, and people came from, Amjad said, as far as San Luis Obispo. So it was really, you know, activism always has been something of a healer for me. So when I am absolutely overwhelmed and distraught and can't believe the new lows that our country's sinking to, it kind of helps me. So, yeah, and you know my background. I just lots of years of anti-war work, peace work, environmental work, human rights work, and of course this intersects with all of those really, particularly human rights. So that's the biggest failure globally, I think, is to accept the human rights of the Palestinian people. I mean, if this was South Africa, the world would be outraged, but the governments have all just kind of backed off because this is Israel and the United States, and I don't believe that we can go on like this. The United States has got to accept that we have boundaries, and ethical boundaries and moral boundaries that don't include mass bombing of civilian populations. So that's why I'm here, Alex, and thank you so much for having us. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, it seems like United States and Israel are, I've heard the saying, hand in glove almost, but which one is the hand, which one is the glove? It's also seemed very, the way the events occurred on the 7th of October, we're almost a month out now, seemed very suspicious to me.
Well, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
That Hamas managed to get into the country without the IDF knowing it.
Right.
I mean, if anybody's familiar about how controlling Netanyahu's government is in terms of checkpoints and everything, it's like, well, it's just hard to see how that happened.
Yeah, they have such sophisticated technology, and
incredible.
It seems like the common interest right now is a ceasefire.
Yes.
And just ending bloodshed on all accounts. Amjad, what do you think is necessary for getting to that stage?
To a ceasefire? Well, you know, you cannot compare the power of Israel to the power of Hamas, even though I'm not condoning Hamas here. The rockets of Hamas killed probably 30 to 60 Israelis for 20 years. I mean, versus the U.S. made bombs, which is 1 ton, or some of them 6 tons. They can destroy the whole building with 100 people at least killed. Every day, from 200 to 500 people killed in Gaza, every day for the last month. Every day. And there is a missing people under the rubbles, about 2,000. They say this is like roughly 10,000 died, and out of 10,000, 4,000 kids. Kids. One kid got killed last week, was on Al Jazeera. 1 year old. 1 day old. He killed with his mom. He didn't get a chance to get a birth certificate. Israel gave him a death certificate. Whole family erased, from the grandfather to the father, to the son, to the grandson, to the grandson. The whole living in like 4 or 5 stories. Then the bomb dropped, the whole building collapsed. Everybody died. Everybody. I seen even one little girl. She was scared. She's like 5 years old. She's the only survivor of a whole family of 25. She's the only survivor. She says, where's my mom? Where's dad? They're gone. My brothers, siblings, they're gone. Auntie, uncles, they're just erased. Whole blocks, residential blocks. There is no military, there is no army, erased. They keep bombing 24 hours, back and forth to the same area. Bomb, until completely erase the whole blocks. Many blocks. 50% of residents lost their homes, either partially or completely. They told them it's safe to go to Gaza City, in the middle. Go from the north to the middle, because they want to attack, from the north, with the incursion. They left to the middle, they bomb him. They tell them, okay, go to the Egypt border, to Rafah. They went there, the Navy shelled them. So the Navy from one side, the F-16 from the top, and the tanks from the east. So there is no safe place in Gaza. They said there is safe places. There is no safe place. Give me what's in the air. Where is the safe place? The Mediterranean? That's the only safe place, just to go die, jump in the water. So Gaza, they realized that even they want to move from their homes, they move in. So why we're moving? We're not moving. We're staying. We're staying. We're gonna die. We're gonna die. We're not leaving our homes, because where are they gonna go? So they say either we die here or we live here. So to have a ceasefire is, I don't know how many more people Israel has to kill to satisfy their appetite of killing, to say, oh, now it's time to stop. I know that America, they can stop it in a few hours if they want. Just cut funds, don't send them weapons to Israel, because they just send them liberty, and they send them supplies, go back and forth to refuel and to get all the ammo and all the bombs. Even new technology they send them to use them, which is a crime against humanity. They're committing all kind of crimes. They shelled hospitals. Imagine 20 hospitals in Gaza. There's like 12 of them out of service now. I've seen a interview with a doctor without borders. He's the spokesperson, was on Al Jazeera. He said he did 270, this is like 5 days ago. He said he did 270 surgery with no anesthesia and no light, no electricity. So he did it, and there's cell phone light. Somebody's holding it, and imagine no anesthesia. He said it's a catastrophic situation by all means. So the answer is ceasefire, because who has the upper hand? Yes, they're still fighting, they're still sending rockets, but the rockets doesn't do anything. We see the rockets. I mean, people get scared. It falls on the parking lot. It destroys 5-6 cars, and partially the building. Not even, but we're talking about the bomb churches, completely gone. Mosques, about 15 to 17 mosques gone, completely rubble. You talk about towers with 12 to 16 story, rubble, completely collapsed. So they have the fire, the power of fire, but the Palestinians don't have 5% of that. Okay, they got 350,000 soldiers to fight, a militia, which is, they say estimate between 30 to 50,000. 350,000 with F-16. We don't have the Palestinians don't have air force. We don't have a military. We don't have a navy. It's just those we call them firefighters, freedom fighters. I'm sorry, freedom fighters. That's the word. The resistance. Why is the resistance? Because of the situation they're in. Gaza is under blockade for 18 years. It's a big jail. It's 140 square mile open air prison, and the most dense living area in the whole world. You know, they just bomb, which is the Biden administration question Israel about the Jabalia refugee camp. That's the Jabalia refugee camp. I have a friend of mine, he's in Santa Barbara. He came to do to the protest. He lost 100 of his family. His mom side, his dad's side, his in-laws. And they destroy it over and over and over. It's 1 kilometer square. It's about 130,000 people lives in it. So the streets is like 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. Not even a car can go there. So only have two or three streets which is 2 meters, and the rest of them, like, you go between the building, it's just 3 feet. So tell me how, I mean, I seen Netanyahu today, he said, we will keep fighting until we destroy Hamas.
They want to eradicate.
They want to eradicate and erase everybody. So that's meaning they have the green light from here to do it, to kill all Gazan probably. Or the plan is to move the Palestinians to Egypt, the Gazan, okay? And the West Bank to Jordan.
But they just cut them off.
Yeah, so they cut him off.
Yeah.
So the ceasefire has to come from Israel, not from the Palestinians. Palestinians, they says, you stop fire, we stop. They're playing games with hostages now. They said, oh, you got to release the hostages with no conditions, and then we stop. But they cannot trust them. They cannot trust them because there's 8,000 prisoners, Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jail for nothing. Mostly they committed nothing. They either resist their stolen land or claiming their stolen land, or they protest like we did, or the people, Israel, they didn't have no secrecy for our towns and homes and cities. They can go 2 a.m., incursion, let's say, Jenin, Nablus, Ramallah, any town, any day, they go with 40, 50 jeeps and about 100 soldiers, and to terrorize the people while they're sleeping, and to look for somebody that he did something or throw something or shout at them or did something. They terrorize the whole neighborhood, and they ransack everything, no secrecy, and they destroy, and they take at least whatever, whomever's there, they take him with them. They beat him up. So this is too much for the Palestinians to bear. We accepted peace accords with Israel. In 1990, Yasser Arafat with Rabin, Prime Minister Rabin, and Bill Clinton. In 1990, they signed the Oslo Accord. But look at the name, Oslo Process Accord, Peace Accord, Process, Peace Accord. It's process. So meaning there's nothing, no end to it.
Nothing set.
Because they said Jerusalem is going to be left for later, And even though we accepted, and you know how much we lost? We lost 80% of the land. In 1948, the United Nations gave Israel 55% of the land, 45% the partition. Resolution 148, I believe, the first resolution of the UN. They give us 45% of the land and 55% to Palestine. Okay, they accepted. Now we have 12% maybe, because what happened as that 20% is they have the security wall, which is the apartheid wall, divided Palestinian cities. The settlers, they got about, maybe they put their hands on another 5 or 6% more. They steal the land, they grab them by force, and kick out Palestinians from their homes. And in that situation, what are you going to do? You're going to give him a chocolate, or you're going to give him a roses? You have to fight. Yeah. This is like international acknowledgement for, if you are occupied, you have the right to resist. But now we see the resist what happened. It doesn't matter if it's a setup or they did it. Maybe they did it on their own. Innocent people died. Innocent people died from both sides. We are not fighting a religion here. It's not a religious war. We're fighting Zionism. They are to kill, grab, slave, and even the people of Gaza, they work in Israel. You know how much unemployment they have in Gaza? 60%. In the West Bank, 40%. It's not much better off. Where do they work? In Israel. They build in their houses, they run their kitchens, restaurants, they're manufacturing labor. It's like we do here to the Mexicans. They do the farming, janitors, you know, those tough jobs. The Palestinians do it for them. And with that, they hold them and beat them up and give them a hard time just when they go in and out, ID, and beat them up at the crossing or at the checkpoints. So the answer is Israel has to recognize us as a human beings. If they want to continue have a good relation internationally and with us, which is we accepted 12%, which is not acceptable to most of the Palestinians, by the way. It's not acceptable by any means. We don't accept it. But because of the situation on the ground, because of the support of the US and Europe and all the Zionist supporters, we cannot do much. We have to accept what we have right now. But let us live. Let us flourish. There's no economy, there's no borders, there is no water control, there is no electricity control, there is no fuel control. Israel controls everything, 100% of what comes to the Palestine, even the West Bank, by the way. They want to keep it that way. So it is an apartheid. It's more than that. I would call it is like, how am I going to find the word for this? It's like genocide. It's like occupation. Colonialism. So this is the worst form of occupation. It's an ugly, in their ugliest form that you can even imagine.
And and even if the ceasefire, they stop shelling them, how does this even? No, they're not going to shake hands.
No.
After this.
Of course not. Not after this one.
No.
Yeah, they're not.
So, is it too far gone for peace? Do you think there's a chance?
No, I don't think so. Not right now. It's too late.
It's too late.
It's too late. I think it's too late. Something big is gonna happen. I don't know. It depends. Who's gonna move in the area? Who's gonna support? What's gonna happen? We don't know. We cannot foresee it. But I think the situation is very tense. Yeah. And the more pressure they put on us right now, the more it escalates going to be. And we accepted to live, which is the minimum, and they're not giving it to us. They still want to grab more. They want to even kick us out, kick the Palestinians to Jordan.
Yeah, the 24-hour notice.
And the total exodus.
That blew me away.
Yeah. So
they want everybody to
no.
Or like,
no, right now in Gaza there's no notice. They just right away the bomb fall with the people in like dense inside, because they fled the area and the family. Let's say you have a house, it's like packed like a sardine. They put all the women in one room and the men in one room. So a small house has like 60 to 70 men. My friend in Santa Barbara, he lost hundreds of his family, 100 already. He's crying. He's got crazy, you know.
Cindy mentioned about this man and the loss he's incurred, and he couldn't pull himself to come down.
He's just down. He told me I can't. He told me I just can't. You know, he can't hold it. It's too much.
Please send him our condolences.
Okay, I will.
You know, I mean, it's not much, but
Yes.
it's what we have to offer.
Thank you.
Dr. Jim, what do you think? What needs to happen to get the governments, maybe of the world? Is this a proxy war for all kinds of different countries happening? right now, or?
That's a good question, and I don't know how to answer that, if it is a proxy war or not. However, the impact of whatever is behind this is resulting in the United States neglecting our commitment to our own integrity. And I think the rest of the world is seeing us as behaving in a way which cannot be justified. And there's been a lot of talk in our government about maintaining or recapturing the role of leader of the free world. Well, I don't think the type of action that is going on between us and Israel is going to support that goal. I think people are seeing that we are supporting, we are deferring a decision about what we should do to another government, to Israel, and we're providing the means for them to commit genocide. And now, that's kind of a nasty word, and you will not hear that on most of the news networks that you see. I scan the news regularly to see what is being told to the American public, and there's a big difference between what CNN, NBC News, CNBC News, Fox, etc. is saying, and
Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera, the one that you mentioned. The accepted role, the accepted perception of the people who live in Gaza and the West Bank is they're terrorists. And the way that is explained is that Hamas, the terrorist organization, that identification justifies, in the minds of some people, what is the Israelis are doing. However, when I look at the history that you summarized very well, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I learned some things that I was not aware of when you were talking. If we look at what has happened, the way in which the Palestinians have been treated since 1948, I think that the treatment is terror. For example, if we compare the way in which the people who were in the Warsaw Ghetto were treated, which I think people would universally say, well, that was a terror experience for the Jewish people. If we compare that to what the Palestinians have been exposed to in Gaza, there's no difference. In fact, it seems to me that currently there's another Holocaust going on. It's a Gaza Holocaust. And
the United States is funding the Nazis to keep it going.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nasty, doesn't it?
If you liken it to the world.
I'm going to put my psychology cap on.
Mm-hmm.
What we see among people whose behavior is extreme, a lot of times, is a phenomenon called identification with the aggressor. Have you heard of that term before? No. Now, that is a defense. So it's a process of thinking, feeling, and then behaving that has its genesis in an individual being severely mistreated. For example, a child being abused, a child being raped, growing up in a family where a person was continually demeaned and deprived of reasonable treatment and not given the rights that a human being should have. Now, you have heard oftentimes that what happens in childhood by an individual is often repeated in adulthood. For example, a person grows up in a home where abuse occurs. They often pass that abuse on to their own children or to other people. A person grows up in a home where there's drug or alcohol use, a lot of times they will incorporate that into their behavior. So one of the ways of dealing with trauma is for the child growing into an adolescent and an adult to no longer perceive themselves as a victim of what occurred to them, but in their mind, identifying with the perpetrator who mistreated them and copying that behavior. Now, what that does to the person is they no longer feel like a victim. They feel powerful now. It eases the conflict in their mind. It doesn't resolve it, but they can temporarily allay the feeling that they've been mistreated and abused, because now they feel powerful. And it is at the expense of mistreating another person. Very common phenomenon, very well known in the psychological and the psychiatric community, and one that oftentimes when someone is behaving in an inappropriate way, we look for that. We take a social history and say, well, tell us more about what your experience was in childhood. And now, I have not seen that in the literature extended to a group of people, to a society. But I bet that partially explains what is going on. I mean, the Jewish people have been victimized by Christians, by other peoples for centuries. So of course they're sensitive to how they're treated. And what happened after World War II was awful, was very extreme. So I think the result of that is they have adapted a pattern of wanting to make sure that they can make themselves and their fellows secure. But I think they've also adopted an attitude of, I have some rights, I have some special privileges. It's okay for me to treat these people the way I'm treating them because of how I was treated. In other words, it's a distortion of our conscience, our superego, where we no longer see things the way we would have if we had not been abused. I've not seen that in the literature. I have not seen that supported anywhere, but it just makes sense to me when I hear the manner in which the Israeli government talks about what the Palestinian people deserve and how they embrace so easily the idea that the Hamas is a terrorist organization. It just seems to me that there's something going on that is distorting the way they're perceiving things.
Yeah, the way they're justifying it seems like, because of XYZ, we can do this.
You can see how it's a self-justification. Like, my dad beat me, I can beat you. In fact, what is interesting is in therapy, I've seen that. I've seen parents come in and they're having troubles with their kids, and a person will talk to me about how he's disciplining the kid very, very harsh way, and he said, and you know what, I don't think I turned out too bad. My dad did the same to me. So it's like somehow there's a distortion in the person's thinking because of how they was treated. I think that's going on here. Now that's a difficult problem because it creates a major hurdle in being able to help the person accurately perceive themselves, because their perception is distorted by their early life experience.
Yeah, that seems to be an integral part in trying to analyze what's happening, is what's the mindset for both sides, even, and whether, I mean, it's hard to separate Hamas from Palestine, but it seems, when I said proxy war, I'm kind of referring to Iran being involved. A lot of
I see what
a lot
you're
of these
saying.
other governments funneling their money into Hamas. And most of the leaders don't even live in Palestine. You have all of these funding sources coming in from outside of the borders.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow to see how where our money's flowing.
I think you're right. I think this is multifactorial, multi-determined from several sources.
Yeah.
To answer your initial question, what needs to be done? We have to stop funding the war.
But there's no checkbox on our taxes. I don't want to fund
You're right.
the military.
And
or
are
uncheck
you aware that Biden is talking about getting Congress to pass a law where any money that goes to Israel does not have to be approved of by Congress? Wow.
And it seems like the money's going to Israel to line the pockets of the military-industrial complex, the corporatocracy that's funds all of these battles.
That's another factor, another determining factor.
So how do we get their stock? How do we get them to have a great holiday bonus? Well, fund more war. Line the pockets of this government that we've propped up.
There's another factor here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have heard any of you heard that starting in 1960 there was a proposal by a engineer in Israel to create a second canal. That second canal would go to the right of the Sinai Peninsula, and then it would cut directly across west, and it would enter the Mediterranean Sea at Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Had you heard of that?
No, I've seen that actually with Netanyahu at the United Nations speech.
Oh, he talked about
He
that.
had the map.
So it's already public knowledge.
He got the map. He said, yeah, they're gonna.
So Israel, if they did something like this, have major income that they could accrue. Now, we're talking about this is a multi-determined, multifactorial problem. That could be part of it.
Yeah.
That could be part of the justification for let's get rid of these people living here. We're going to put a canal through, and the money's going to roll in. It'll be a far superior canal than the current one because the current canal has a sand base. This is going to be a concrete base, and much larger. You may have heard a couple months ago a ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, and nothing could pass. Well, this won't happen because this will be a much more modern. That canal was built in the 50s. Oh, this is 70 years later. So now I think there's a lot of factors, and I hate to say part of it is this.
That seems
some of the deep pockets.
Seems like all of it. I would say, yeah, I would even rewind to your history lesson earlier and try to decipher the Zionist group.
Well, the Zionist, it's well known. I mean, everybody knows what Zionist mean. Zionist mean expansion. It's a political movement founded to expand and to find a homeland for the Jews. But they didn't stop there. They just want to get the wealth directed to politics, meaning they're going to expand and have it covered financially and politically for their movement, and militarily, of course, covered by the West. Because as I said, when the Ottomans collapsed, they installed Israel there with the agreement with the superpower at that time, Britain and French and the Italian and the Americans, to install Israel there to destabilize the area, because they don't want the Muslim to have connection again.
How could viewers find more information? They would search.
Yeah, if you want to get more information about the conflict, about the founding of Israel and the prior history and what they've done, damages to the whole region, You go to ifamericans.knew.org.
Ifamericans.org. Okay.
Yes. And this is not Arab, not Muslims,
Just
it's
history.
Americans.
Is it weird Jewish?
I don't
I
know.
don't know if Allison is or not. She's been in the studio before. I've interviewed her years back.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Has a lot of facts and figures and charts and numbers and all of that for that kind of mindset, to get a picture and maps of how Palestine was and then now how it is, the little tiny dots and pockets instead of a big chunk.
I saw a fascinating time lapse. It was animation, but time lapse, and it started around 1948, and it showed the borders, showed Israel, and then it showed Palestine, and from the coast, it was just bomb, 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 pushed in, bomb, 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 and the year's just going until where that is now, and it's just, they're just backed up against the wall.
They swallowed the whole thing. I mean, we don't have much left, you know. And they fight on us for what's left. They want the whole thing. That's Zionist. Because the Jewish people, we're not against the Jewish people. I have a lot of good friends Jewish. Even they will stand for me. They said this does not represent them. This is wrong. Because where's your peace loving? Where's your harmony? Where's your empathy? Where's your caring? Where is your responsibility towards the people you're occupying?
They have their blinders on. They're shown a savage attack by Hamas, but they're unaware of the history.
Okay, but before then, okay, put this attack aside.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
forget about Hamas. Let's say we don't have Hamas. Hamas started in 1987.
Right.
From 1948 to 1987, the Palestinians were living like in heaven? No. So they were the same thing, grabbing land. Actually, you see the map. The map shrank not because of Hamas. Okay, I just want to explain to you to understand. It did not shrink because of Hamas, or Fatah, or PLO. It shrank because of the Zionists. They grab more land, deprive people out of their home, take their farms, and massacre them, and they get shrinking, and the humiliation, disrespect, beaten up at the crossing the cross borders and the checkpoints, and killed for no reason, injured, total dehumanization of the Palestinians. I've been there.
It makes it easier for them to have a scapegoat
Yeah.
like Hamas.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Which gets me to think,
Yes.
did they create Hamas?
Yeah, I understood that in
Could be. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't
That's my
I don't
cynical
know.
conspiracy
It could be.
mind side of things.
But they have somebody though to come and if they give us what's the UN chart give us 45% and they're 55%, two states, recognized states, back to the original plan. Believe me, we'll be living with a harmony. We're not gonna fight them. But with the more killing, more land grabbing, jailing, the security fence, which is apartheid, 20 feet up, concrete, with towers and gates, dividing your homes. I was telling Jim earlier, like when they put originally when they planned to put the wall, they grabbed more land from the Palestinian side to the Israeli side. They grabbed like another maybe 3 to 4% of the West Bank. They swallow it. And people, they have, let's say, if you have a land and the wall cut it in half, and now you lost another half, or your farm, and people, they have a school here, the kids go to school, they have to wait until the policeman come open the gate for them and let him go to school and come back. Sometimes he's not there, or it is late, or he's eating, he lock it. So, tell me, you live like animal. basically, they want the Palestinian, they want, and they're the Zionists, they want us to live like animals. The animals, like you milk them, you eat, you kill them, take the meat, and then you use everything. So for us, they use us, they kill us, they shoot at us, they dehumanize us, and also they take our labor. They force us because to work for them. So it's a total comprehensive like occupation. Not only they occupying the land, they occupying the land, the human being, the morals, everything. Even I was telling Jim, even after the Palestinian, if somebody like let's say fight Israeli, they grabbed his corpse. If the Israeli got his corpse, the Supreme Court in Israel in 2020 passed a law: don't return that corpse to their family. And what they do, they take their body parts, donate it to the Israeli. So it's really unthinkable. It's really I never seen something like this happen before. And they tell you we have the right to defend ourselves. How about us? Okay? How about us? We don't have the right to defend ourselves. When we defend ourselves, we get labeled terrorists right away. Okay? Even though we're entitled to defend ourselves under occupation with the UN Charter. We are entitled. Anybody entitled. If somebody come to your home, want to rob you, do you give him a flower or a piece of candy? Tell him, okay, let me give you a piece of candy. You're going to fight. Yeah. So this is the whole country, for God's sake, And there's about 6 million people living in Palestine. In Gaza Strip, 2 million. In the West Bank, about 3.5 million. And 1.5 million in Israel is the U.S. Israeli citizens, Arab Israeli citizens. So there's like 6 million living in there.
Oh, in that region.
Yes, equal to the Jewish, probably, maybe more than the Jewish.
So I heard you mentioning before we got in to record this about kind of what was that, how that charter was based, and it was on archaeological. Or they claim that it's the Judaism uses that region.
They claim, yes, they claim that in their Torah, they have right for that land based on religion, based on the Temple of David, which is under the current Grand Mosque of Aqsa. Because this is the second holiest site in Saudi Arabia, the Mecca. And this comes after it. This is the second holiest shrine to the Muslims, to 2.2 billion Muslims. Not only the Arabs, by the way.
Why is that site so important to them?
Oh, it's so important because, I'll tell you why. Because our Prophet Muhammad in Islam, he was united with all his prophets. God bring him back, and they pray there. And he has a journey. He has a journey from Mecca to Jerusalem to meet with God when he get the commandment. And so it's connected with our religion. And the land is going to be the land of resurrection, Palestine. So everybody die. When this world is finished, people are going to come back. The one who believe that there is life after, they're going to go there for resurrection and for judgment in that land. God will spread it out for the whole people to be accounted for what they've done.
And on the opposite side, what is the significance of the Temple of David with Judaism?
They believe they've been there for thousands of years before, the time of Moses, and which is true. They lived there. They lived there. Actually, in 1947, there were 8% Jews, only 8%, by the way. And they were living there with the Palestinians.
Before there
under
was
the Ottomans.
Any charter or any government?
Before. Mm-hmm. With the Ottomans rule, before the Ottoman collapsed, they were there, living there. As I told you, it was a safe haven for them. They fled the persecution of Europe and the church in Russia, and they came to the Ottomans, and the Ottomans opened their hearts and their hands and their homes, and they let them in. They came in ships, and they settled there. And a lot of them said they settled in Iraq, in Egypt, in Palestine, and Jordan a little bit, and in Tunisia, Morocco, they settled, okay, and Yemen, okay? So they settled in those areas, and they lived normal. They have their neighborhoods, and we have no problem. We never have fight, no fighting, no conflict at all. No, it's not a religious conflict. It's not a religious conflict. Like our brothers and sisters in Christianity, we don't have a conflict with them. And the opposite, in Palestine, you have the Aqsa Mosque here, and you have the St. Mary churches there, like between like 3 or 4 blocks. And for our holidays, they come to our holidays, we go to their holidays. They exchange greeting, they exchange food, they exchange sweets. For hundreds of years, we live in harmony with them. No, we have no problem. The problem is, once you occupy us, the Zionists, and expand and killing us, and not dehumanize us, and give us like a war, what they call it, an economical war, which is they have to control everything coming to us. We feel like we are like not humans. We don't feel equity. We don't feel we are up to their respect. We feel like we are like down. They look at us, we're like nothing. So they can't do anything to us. That's why we get angry. Yeah. It's our nature. It's our nature. Sure. If somebody doesn't respect you, you go talk to him, you leave him alone. We don't talk to him. Right. But if somebody beat you and jail you and then dehumanize you, when you get the chance, you're gonna attack. Yeah. You have it's a natural reaction.
You don't let that go.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't let it go. Even if you forget, you get out, it's going to be in your bag.
And it's passed down to the kids. It's
going to stay here for years. It's not going to be erased.
Yeah.
Imagine generation lost their, like in Gaza, the whole family gone. The whole family, like 50, 60, from the grandfather to the grandson, erased. No survivor. Many families, this is maybe 50 to 100 families erased. Okay? So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you gonna, the only thing I tell you, if you want to live in peace right now with this situation, there is one solution. You give us a state. Like, go back to resolution 242. Okay? You give us a livable, recognized, a state with 45% of the land, which is, they're never going to do that. Never, ever, never, never. And if we have our own port, our own airport, our own economy, our own army, this is the only way we can live with them. But you cannot compare, the 5th greatest military in the world with some militias.
It's asymmetrical warfare.
Yeah.
It's not a war.
It's not a war. This is if you're fighting. You said been fighting for 1,000 years. This is not true. It's not true. It's not true. They were in harmony at the time of the Ottomans, which is 100 years ago. Okay. It's just when Israel was created that the problem started with Israel, with the occupation. This is the root cause of the problem, Alex. It's occupation, it's dehumanization, it's everything.
All of this has a precedent, I think, with what happened in Germany with the Jews and the parallels that Jim was making. I mean, everything that you mentioned, the dehumanization. I mean, even the body parts things. I mean, what the Nazis were doing, the Nazi doctors were doing, the experimentation that they did on the Jewish people, it was horrendous. Mm-hmm. Every aspect of their lives were absolutely in the palm of the hands of those guards. And, like you said, they treat you like animals. They take everything you have. I mean, the heaps of spectacles, of people's clothing, of everything they had, there was all of that. I think that you touched on something, that Jim touched on something really important, to understand this psychologically. You know, and I'm not a doctor, but I worked 33 years in mental hospitals, and I read thousands of charts, mental charts of my patients. And, you know, so when I was looking at what was, because I was impacted as a child by, I was born the day we bombed Hiroshima, for one thing. And then secondly, when I learned about the Holocaust. So I was a little kid learning about this, and I'm wondering, you know, why did the adults let this happen, you know, which led to my becoming an activist. I just had to know. But I've asked the same question that you have, Jim, but from a little bit different perspective in terms of how a whole people, the Israeli people, and then the Nazis that controlled them, and then how that's playing out with the Palestinians, you see? So the way I was looking at it was the abusive parent, the abusive child, the abusive parent raises a child, and then as that child comes into adulthood, they consciously or unconsciously make a choice about their lives, whether they're going to be the upstanding parent that doesn't continue that degrading parenting style with their own children and they produce healthy children themselves, or whether they are so damaged themselves in their psyche that they become a replica, another abusive parent, and identify, as you say, with the aggressor. And I've seen this myself. And I did find an article years ago of somebody that talked about that, and I don't remember, it was Psychology Today or something. It's been years ago. I don't remember who the name was. But in terms of those dynamics, I think they're all there. But there's another point I'd like to bring into this, and you hear the Zionists talk now about Palestinians being animals or human animals, and you know, my husband was in Vietnam, and my father was in Guadalcanal. You know, they both were veterans, they both survived it, and they both taught me a lot. But the analogy that I want to put out right at the moment is what you're saying about feeling like an animal and being treated like an animal. Well, that's part of the whole dehumanization process, and that was what was done to the Israeli people. But it's also a part of war in general, and it shows up in the language. So when my husband was in Vietnam, the term for the Vietnamese people was gooks. You know, you dehumanize them, you call them gooks. You know, and that separates so that you're able to kill them because they aren't quite really human. Well, of course, somebody as sensitive as my husband was, he saw through that in a minute. You know, it's like, that's not real. And that's why the suicide rate of veterans coming back to this country after they have been involved in these horrible slaughters where they thought they were going to go serve some noble cause and find out that essentially they're over there shooting innocent people. They commit suicide because they can't live with themselves. So we as humans have all these kind of messed up things going. So, okay, so the Vietnamese people were called gooks. And then when we went into Iraq and we went into Afghanistan, the term that I was hearing all the time was towel heads and rag heads. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, this is an admirable civilization, a series of civilizations, several civilizations with great knowledge, great history, and their own manners and their own dresses. But that's what they do. And now I see the same thing playing out with Israel referring to you as animals. In fact, that sign that I took today to the protest, on the other side of it, I had it in my window. The Vietnamese people were not gooks. Down the line. You know, it's just militarism, power structures, global power structures, all of these kinds of things are things that absolutely must change if we are going to survive as a species. You know, I mean, we already know from climate change studies that, you know, 5.5% of the emissions that are in the atmosphere are a result of global militaries and war. You know, all of these warplanes They produce tremendous emissions, and some of those emissions are something like water vapor, but it changes the atmosphere. And the United States is fully aware. They absolutely know. Lloyd Thomas knows. All of the leaders in the Pentagon know. They know what they're doing to the atmosphere, but we as an American people aren't dealing with those things, or we're not forcing it. So to go back to what you had asked us earlier, Alex, about trying to find how to go about a ceasefire. I think we can all agree that our institutions in the United States, especially, but around the world are essentially failing us. They are not giving human life the credit it deserves for us to survive. Instead, it's a dog-eat-dog thing, and who's got the most money, and who can get the most oil and the most fossil fuels, and who can bomb the most people here or there or whatever. So what I've been thinking about in terms of our failed institutions, our ability to direct our own resources, our financial resources, our fossil fuel resources, is not being met. Not by the United Nations, disappointingly enough, who we had a major figure in the United Nations that just quit as well out of New York, and not out of the U.S. State Department, where we also saw a key person step down, Josh. And I think that as hard as it's going to be, we, the people, have got to come together and assert ourselves. How that's going to happen, and happen non-violently, I don't honestly know. But I do feel like business as usual has taken us really down the tubes. And I think that what is going on in Gaza now is so absolutely inhumane, so outrageous, that people are not going to listen to whatever the stories are. They're going to see that footage. They're going to see those photos, and they're going to say, enough. We've got to change things. This isn't acceptable, and so I don't know where it will end. But I think that humanity as a whole, we have to find our balance. We have to come into agreement with one another. We have to compromise. We have to understand and work with each other, and have an entirely new way of approaching conflict that's not happening now. What happened today when we had that protest is Amjad was just a shining star. And so many people came out. People came from all over. A lot of Middle Eastern people came, and it was wonderful. And we were all of a like mind there, that this has got to change. And I think that sort of unity between us as human beings on the planet was really healthy and healing. And we just have to not let that go. And I also learned something really big today myself that I wasn't fully aware of, and that's how much support there is in the general population for what we were doing out there. Those horns were honking constantly, and I got very little of the other, very little. So the suffering and the dying and the killing and the death in Gaza is having an impact in the United States on our own population, and I think it's happening all over the world, and it may be sufficient to change things in the status quo and the dynamics, because it has to.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's causing a lot of anger. The conflict's causing a lot of anger with both sides. And you're seeing, like I'm watching footage in Russia of Muslim men, whether they're terrorists or they're just angry, honest people, looking for Jews in the airport,
Like it could be turned into an anti-Semitic thing again.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it seems as if it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's not my hope, but in just kind of how things play out, it seems this can get really bad. And I'm every day hoping that peace just finds a way into the minds of these world leaders, the government, the Zionists, you know, the administration here in America, that something has to change their course of thinking. Something has to come into that psychology, as you talked about. As we unite and as we get together, it seems like that might be the strongest way to send that message, to hope for that unification. Is there anything else you want to add in to conclude our conversation today, Doc?
I have something after him.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me think about it while you talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amjad.
I would end up with this. Palestinian lives matter. Like the Israelis and the Jewish lives matter. Like the white lives matter. We are sharing humanity. We are human beings. If you treat us good, if you give us two-state solution, like the charter, like what the UN, and by the way, there's hundreds of resolutions against Israel, and they get vetoed by the US. They're condemning Israel for what they're doing, home demolition, killing civilians, jailing, and even hitting Arab countries like Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt, and massacres, and it's vetoed. It's vetoed by America, by the US. But if you treat us like a human being, give us what we deserve, give us a state, we live with dignity, and we have our own economy, we have our own state, we will live side by side. But as long as that is not happening, don't expect us to give up more. We will not. Our generation, they will not give up more, because we lost everything. Palestinians lost hope. You know, they have no education. We are the most intelligent people of the world. We are the most educated people per capita in the Middle East. Palestinians, doctors, pharmacists, teachers. All the teachers they teach in Egypt, Syria, in the Arab Peninsula, Saudi Arabia. The doctors and the engineering of the roads of the Palestinians. They're the one who built the Gulf, built, you know, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Arab Emirates in the 50s and the 60s, talking about. So, but in Gaza it's different. They bomb in the schools, they don't give them go outside to study higher education. So they kind of demonize them and kind of put a lot of pressure on them and dehumanize them. So don't expect us or them to be so optimistic about life. They lost hope. I mean, when you lose hope, you want to just either do something bad to yourself, kill yourself, or do damage to the other, because nobody's listening. Everybody has a deaf ear, and every time the U.S. block the vetoes that condemn Israel, basically they're unleashed. They can do whatever they want. I mean, that's not right. This is not how you treat other humans, other people. But in their mind, they can do that because they have the back support of Israel. So unfortunately, when our life matters, when you give us our state, we can live, you know, we can live like neighbors, like we lived before, with no problems. But as long as the occupation continue, the illegal settling continue, the incursion of the Masjid al-Aqsa, of the worshipper continue, and the killing of the Palestinian and jailing and all the appetites, you know, state-like, this is not going to take us anywhere. It's going to go worse, in my belief.
Okay? I know what I want to say.
Yes, Jim.
When the Ukrainian war started, one of the things that occurred within a month was RT, Russia Today, was removed from the availability of the contract I had with my provider. And Al Jazeera News was also removed in the last few years once things started heating up in the Midwest. Things are not going to change in this country unless the people stand up to what the government is doing. But people are not going to stand up to what the government is doing unless they're educated on what's really going on. And the usual news networks are fluff. They're not showing what's going on. In fact, you may have heard that Blinken went to Qatar and said, the Qatar government, by the way, is the one that governs Al Jazeera News. They said, would you tone down that news a little bit? So they want to distort what's available, even from another country, to the American public. So there has to be an effort for us to help people access information that is not supported by the powers that be, which, as you implied, are benefiting from this war.
So thank you for having us, Alex.
Yes.
You're doing your part doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to take extra effort from people to, and it's your average hardworking American, they don't have energy, time at the end of their day. What's the download, or maybe even skip the news altogether and just be entertained by whatever little show they watch or movies or spend time with their kids. So hoping that more people can carve out time of their day to seek out the right information and hopefully not get lost in the comments on social media where it's just fighting and fighting and fighting, and take a step back and say, instead of imposing my view, what can I learn from somebody? But it's going to take an openness, a willingness to change their thought, how they process their thoughts and emotions. And having discussions like these are crucial. Attending the marches, organizing, having people come together. So, yeah, hoping and praying can do so much, but physical action, I think, will come. Hopefully, can come in, because as a civilization, we're not going to last at all. No. If we're limited by our governmental leaders, if we're limited by the money and power structure, and there's, an ultimate truth is we all live under one sun, and we're all breathing in that same air. So if we can step back and recognize each other as humans, then I think the work can be done. But it's going to take some deprogramming almost of what everyone thinks that they think is the truth or may not be the truth. And, if it is in a religious sense, honor where that supposed truth has come from, but begin to see all sides and hope to recognize, the common threads that bind us all. So Cindy, Amjad, Dr. Jim, thank you guys so much for coming and sharing what is a super emotional and very, very difficult subject to talk about. But I really appreciate you all coming on today. And is there social media or websites if people want to find more information about you? Cindy?
Democracy Now!, I suggest. They've got a lot of good footage on what's going on in Gaza.
Okay.
Interesting thing. All three of us regularly watch Democracy.
Amy Goodman.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Democracy Now, and you
Al
can
Jazeera.
search that.
Al Jazeera,
Okay.
yes.
You know, we might say, you know, the Al Jazeera reporters in an isolated incident were targeted. I don't know if you guys know that. Everybody does, right? Yeah. Way away from everybody else. They knew who they were and they killed them. They don't want that information to get out. And I think what you're saying about education is so critical, because if somebody sits down and watches the three of us with this conversation and they don't have the background in it, they're going to think we're all whack jobs.
That's true.
You know, we're just out of our mind. We don't know what we're talking, or we're, you know, not American in our views. But we just have spent a lot of time educating ourselves, and this is where we are.
Education is power. That's what they're saying.
Another source is direct reports from the United Nations. And you can get those online.
Okay.
You don't have to go wait for newscasts, because they give regular reports of what's happening in Gaza.
Great. Jim?
Well, I want to thank you very
Absolutely.
much for making this
Yeah.
opportunity.
Thanks, Alex.
Amjad.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
My friend.